All right, lesson 2, the Earth's moon. So, vocab, Maria is a large, dark, flat area on the moon. A phase is a portion of the moon or a planet reflecting light as seen from the Earth. A waxing phase, or the waxing phases, are phases during which more of the moon's near side is lit each night. So this is talking, we're going from a new moon all the way until it's a full moon. A waning phase, or waning phases, are phases during which less of the moon's near side is lit each night. So this would be full to new, so getting less lit up every night. Moon facts. The moon does not emit its own light. It only reflects sunlight. So the shadows are what causes the phases. The moon has 1.2% of the Earth's mass and has 27% of the Earth's diameter. The moon has an elliptical orbit. The average distance from the Earth is around 384 kilometers. It takes 27.3 days for one rotation. So rotation, again, we're talking spinning like a day. It also takes 27.3 days for one revolution around the Earth. So that would be a year. There's that kind of movement. This is the reason that we are always facing the same side of the moon. It rotates at the same rate it revolves. Moon formation. So the best hypothesis we have is a giant impact hypothesis. Scientists think that an object about the size of Mars crashed into a semi-molten Earth around 4.5 billion years ago. The impact ejected vaporized rocks into space. Those rocks eventually cooled and formed rings around Earth. Those rings started to clump together, and as they collided, they formed the moon. So the moon's surface, we have craters. There are millions of these. The largest is 76 kilometers in diameter. Those are pretty obvious to spot. Rays are light-colored streaks extending out from the rays. That should be craters, excuse me. Formed by blasted out material when impact occurred. So when we have impact on the moon, and one quick note that's not going to be written down at all is the moon will have many more craters than the Earth because it doesn't have the atmosphere to burn up meteors like the Earth does. So there's nothing to protect it. So there's a lot more impact craters on the Earth, or on the moon, excuse me. The Maria are the smooth surfaces of solid lava. The lava came through the moon's crust and solidified. They're dark, flat, and formed all after crater impacts. Highlands are formed by objects' impact. They're the light areas on the moon, and they're the oldest and most highly cratered regions of the moon. So here we have a few different examples. There should be another picture here, but it didn't seem to show up. Obviously, we have the large craters. The rays would be the areas moving out from those craters. So the moon's motion. Rotation time and revolution time are equal. This causes the same side of the moon to always face the Earth. This side is called the near side. The side not seen from the Earth is called the far side. The moon's orbit, or the moon orbits Earth because of gravitational forces between the Earth and the moon, just like the gravitational forces between the sun and the Earth. So here's what we see. We have the rotation of the Earth along with the revolution of the Earth, the rotation of the moon along with the revolution or the orbit of the moon. Again, note that these size and distances are not to scale at all. So what happens is, we're always, if we put a guy on the moon, on the near side of the moon, facing the Earth, the moon would rotate, so it would spin inward at the exact same time or at the exact same rate as it rotates around the Earth. And this would cause you to always be facing the same spot on the moon. So the phases of the moon. Half of the moon is always lit by the sun's rays. That doesn't mean we can always see what's lit. The sequence of the phases is called a lunar cycle. One lunar cycle is 29.5 days. A waxing phase is the first week, or week one is called the first quarter. It starts lighting up on the west side and gradually be more lit each night until it reaches half lit. So when it reaches half lit, that's called the first quarter. Week 2, we have the full moon. More and more of the near side gets lit until the entire side is lit. When that happens, we call that a full moon, when the entire thing is lit. You've seen full moons before. Waning phase, so after we reach the full moon, we move from the waxing phase into the waning phase. And during week 3, we have the third quarter, so the lit part of the moon becomes smaller and smaller until only the east half of the moon is lit. So now we're working back in the other direction. That's called the third quarter. A new moon is when less and less of the near side is lit until the moon is completely dark. After that, the cycle starts over, from new to first quarter to full to third quarter, back to new. Alright, so this is going to be a very important diagram. If we have the sunlight coming from the right side of our screen, that is going to determine what we see. Here, again, if we have the sunlight coming from this side, the half of the moon that's going to be lit isn't going to be visible by the Earth. So it looks as though it's very dark. There's no light. That would be a new moon. Here you can see a little bit more. We didn't talk about crescents at all. And again, waxing means that it's becoming more lit. Waning means that it's becoming less lit. So a waxing crescent means that it's being more lit. Again, we have the sunlight coming and striking this half. Now we can see half of what's being lit because this other half is shaded. Here we have the waning or waxing gibbous. Again, we're not going to talk about gibbous and crescents very much. The last part here we have a full moon. We have a full moon, and again, this is provided that it's not an eclipse situation. If it were an eclipse, the Earth would be blocking the sunlight from reaching the moon. In this case, this full moon, that's not what's happening. We have the sunlight going past the Earth and striking the moon, so we can see the entire half. And then that circle repeats itself. We go to gibbous, and then to quarter, and finally crescent, back to new. Here's just another representation of that. New, crescent, first quarter, gibbous. This would be a waxing gibbous because it's being more lit. Then we have full, waning gibbous, third quarter, waning crescent. And again, one more representation of this, and we'll spend a little bit of time working on it in class too. New to waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full, waning gibbous, last quarter, waning crescent, new. And that will do it for lesson 2 notes.